I have a love-hate relationship with this city. Like, I love it for all the reasons I just listed, but I also sometimes don't like it because of the reasons I'm about to list. Let me take a sip of this. Okay, it has been years since I filmed a video like this. Let's do this. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. So from the title of this video, you guys already know, this is gonna be my top 10 pros and top 10 cons of living in Seattle. I made this exact video a couple years ago, I think like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know, I refused to watch it. So I thought I would do an updated one. So I've been in Seattle for a little over 6.5 years, and I just feel like I've learned so much throughout that time. And yeah, I don't know if this list is gonna be the same or different, but I wanted to just update it, I guess. A lot of the Seattle videos that I know have helped you guys so much, I really need to do updated videos on because so much has changed since I have filmed those videos. I just feel like some of them I should update, so this is one of them. Okay, do I start with the pros or do I start with the cons? I'm gonna start with the pros because I feel like more people have things to say on the cons of Seattle, and I want to touch on that maybe a little bit more than the pros. I also took a poll on my Instagram to see what my audience thinks are like the pros and cons of living in Seattle, so I'll read those after my list is over, just to kind of see if there's anything that I was missing and other people's thoughts on this. So none of these are in like a specific order from like best to worst. It's just like a list of pros. So let's just get into it. Okay, the first pro is that it's a beautiful city. I personally think Seattle is a beautiful city. It's like all these buildings, and then you have little like neighborhoods of homes, but then as a backdrop, you have mountains. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I am coming from the Midwest. Everything's flat over there. We don't have a backdrop of mountains. So when I first got here, I was like, this is unreal. Like from the apartment that I live in now, there's so many buildings around me, but I can also see Mount Rainier. And like, that's unreal. Like that's really cool. So I just think Seattle's a really beautiful city. There's a lot to look at here. And yeah, that's a pro for me for sure. My next pro is that Seattle is in a really good location. This is something that took me a couple years to really like feel. We're close to Alaska, we're close to Hawaii, we're close to Canada, literally a 2.5 hour drive. We're close to Portland, California. These are places you can drive that for me, like I love the West Coast, so that's really important to me that I'm able to drive to these beautiful, cool places near me. I feel like when traveling, if you're going to the airport, Seattle is just like a good location to be at. Of course, there's places that are so far away, but I just feel like the places that are close, for some reason, it just feels more accessible to be here than like middle of nowhere in, you know, the Midwest, which of course, duh, we know that, but because Seattle is a larger city, there's more planes and travel coming here, and it feels more accessible to go places. Does that make sense? It just feels like a really good, solid location. Okay, moving on. My third pro of living in Seattle, Washington is the food. This was such a huge one. I feel like when I got here, the food was just so different than what I was used to back home. Like Midwest food, I'm not trying to shit on it. It's just a little heavier, a little greasier. But here, it just felt fresher. It felt healthier. I will also say I'm a huge fan of seafood and sushi, and I just feel like Seattle really does a great job with seafood. I mean, we're right by the ocean, we're close to the fish, and when it comes to seafood specifically, I think they do a really, really good job. But overall, I think the food here is delightful. I think it's good. There's a variety. I feel like some people are gonna come for me for that, but I do feel like the food in Seattle is really good. Okay, my next pro for living in Seattle, Washington is that there is a lot of activity. And what I mean by this is there's always people doing things, whether that is sailing or rock climbing or hiking. or paddleboarding, there's always somebody doing something, and it feels like the city itself is very active. Like there's a lot of different sports you could get into. There's acro yoga, there's pole dancing classes, like name it, and I bet there's like a group here that is doing it and that you can join, which I think is really, really cool. I really find that there is a huge presence when it comes to activities and hobbies here. Okay, moving on. My next pro of living in Seattle, Washington, and this kind of ties in with the first one of the state in general being beautiful, is that Seattle itself is such a lush city. It's always blooming, whether it's winter or spring or fall, it doesn't matter. Like there's always color in Seattle. It's always green. It doesn't feel like things are dead because everything's always blooming. When I first moved here, I was like, wait, is it winter yet? And we had been like 3 months into winter, and there was like flowers on trees, or trees in general were just green. Now, of course, not every tree is going to be like this, but for the most part, you can look around and there will be something blooming or something that looks alive. And I feel like that is really freaking cool. When it's winter in the Midwest or even fall, everything's dead or brown. And while that's cool for a minute, I just think I prefer things to look alive, and I think it's really cool that Seattle feels so lush and vibrant. I don't know what that movement was. For a city, it's really easy to feel like there's no nature around, and with Seattle, like I always feel like a presence of nature, and I adore that. I love that. Okay, moving on. Frank, you can be in this one if you want. My next pro is that Seattle is a very pet-friendly city. And I was gonna say a dog-friendly city, but we know Seattle's a dog-friendly city. I'm talking pets. Dogs, cats, bunnies, birds. Seattle's a very pet-friendly city. The last couple summers I went to the beach, there's been people that have like pet birds that will like bring them to the beach, and they'll just fly, and then come right back to the person. Like it's so cool. And yes, Seattle is a very dog-friendly city, but also very cat-friendly as well. Dogs can go with you kind of anywhere. They can go into stores, they can go to restaurants. But I find that there's also a lot of people that, and we love this, have cats on leashes or cats in strollers. People love their pets here, and you guys know I have a cat. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm obsessed with my cat. I feel like most apartment units have like pet turfs on the roofs. There's a lot of dog parks. Any coffee shop that you go into will have like snacks for your dog, and it's cool. I love pets and I love being surrounded by them. So the energy is good when there's like a dog or a cat nearby, in my opinion. Okay, the next pro, which is probably one you guys are like, why haven't you talked about this yet, is the opportunity. I think there's a lot of opportunity in this city. It's definitely one of the reasons it caught my attention when I was looking at places to live. There's a lot of really big companies over here, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon. We have DocuSign, I think. What else do we have? Let me look at my list. Oh, we have Boeing, REI, OfferUp, Eddie Bauer. Like we have a lot of these like larger, I'm forgetting so many, larger companies here. And that can be really exciting for a lot of people that want to have a good career and feel stable with their income, things like that, whatever. The opportunity here is very good. I think there's a lot of room to grow with career. Okay, moving on, my next pro is that Seattle is a very green, sustainable city. It always feels like the city is doing something to better the environment and earth, whether that's recycling or implementing a new system when it comes to composting. It feels like the city really does a great job trying to help out the environment, because nature is such a huge presence here. It's so important, and before moving here, I didn't really have a good sense of, first of all, the state the earth was in, and also how important and doable it is to recycle or compost. And I think that it's really cool that Seattle takes that so seriously, and that they really try to make people that live here understand why it's important. So yeah, it's a very green, sustainable, conscious city, and that is freaking amazing. Okay, you guys, so my next one, again, kind of ties into Seattle being a beautiful city. but it has to do with landscape. Because there's so many different types of landscapes, it just feels like you can go to one part of the city or one part of the state and feel like you're in a completely different like part of the world. And that is so cool and such a fun thing that we have here. I think it's one that we kind of take for granted because it is really cool that we can drive a couple hours and feel like we're in the desert, or drive a couple hours and be in the snow. It's amazing. And I think when you don't come from something like that, you realize it. But the people that are here, they're like, oh yeah, it's just like, it's the way of living, and it's really cool. So I think that that is for sure a pro and something that I'm very thankful to be around. Okay guys, my last pro of living in Seattle, Washington is that there are a lot of makers and doers and small businesses here. I love this about Seattle. I feel like there's so many people that are like pursuing their goals and dreams, but a lot of really great smaller businesses, or businesses that started small and are now huge. I look at like Moment. Moment is like a filming company here, and they're huge on YouTube. They're huge. Their platform is massive, but I think that it's so cool that they like kind of are here. Other smaller businesses like The Works, which I think is really cool. They started off really small, and I feel like they're definitely becoming larger, but they're a company that creates classes for people. If you want to go take a macrame class or a class on bath bombs or how to read tarot, like they have all these options, and there's a lot of people doing really fun, interesting things here, whether that's music or something creative, or food. And like that's really cool and fun. And I feel like if that's something you want to get into, if a small business is something you're starting, this is such an accepting place for it, and there's such a good community of people behind it. Okay, I'm gonna go to my Instagram now and just take a look to see what people thought some of the pros were, maybe that I didn't list. Maybe I listed all of them, maybe I didn't. These are pros that my audience has given me. So it's a foodie city and proximity of amazing nature. The summer sunlight, sailing all the time, a lot of sailing and rowing, hashtag boat life, access to nature, when sunny days finally come and feel like magic, taco time, Lake Washington, sun lasting longer than other states, fellow cat people, hi, I'm right here. You have the Cascades and Olympics, the spring and summer, amazing bodies of water and nature. People are nice and calm, the culture, Seattle dogs and the Sounders, lots of sports. People are very like happy with their sports here, I feel like. Fall, winter are beautiful here, public transportation, nature, rainy season, last year's white Christmas, farmers markets, snowy winters, craft beer, fresh fish, and food. So a lot of food, which I was like, oh, people are gonna like hate if I say the food here is good, but I think the food here is really good, and that's maybe because of where I'm coming from, but yeah, those are some pros that my audience has shared with me. Let's move on to the cons. Okay, let me grab my coffee because there's more than 10 cons. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, all this is subjective. Like some people are gonna disagree with me, some people are not. You guys know how I feel about Seattle. I've had a really rocky time here. I have a love-hate relationship with the city. Like I love it for all the reasons I just listed, but I also sometimes don't like it because of the reasons I'm about to list. Let me take a sip of this. Let's start on a similar note to where we started our pros. The weather. The weather can definitely be a con, and I want to just put that out there. We have a lot of gloom and rain in this city. If that is not your thing, do not move here because we have a lot of it. I would say like 3 to 5 months, maybe even 6 sometimes, of just rain and gloom, and that can really get to people's emotions and well-being. So we take vitamin D because we need the happiness and we need some sort of sunlight internally because people be getting depressed here. So take that into consideration. The weather can be kind of a bitch. Okay, let's get this one out of the way because it's probably the #1 con that people associate Seattle with. It is expensive. Seattle is an expensive city to live in. Is it as expensive as New York? No. Or LA? Probably not. But we're not going to compare here. It's still an expensive city to live in. You can get a 250 square foot apartment for like $1,300. Of course, there are tips and tricks and little like neighborhoods to know that can get you better deals. If you guys want me to make like an updated how to find housing or how to find a good neighborhood to live in Seattle, let me know. I can do an updated video on that. I feel like since I've made those videos, I have more insight on how to do that, but it can be very tricky. Seattle is an expensive city to live in. It's expensive to have a car here. It's expensive to kind of exist, and you have to kind of figure out like, do the pros outweigh the cons? Moving on to my next con is the people. You guys know that I am like, you guys know how I feel about the people. The people are kind of passive. They're kind, they're nice, but like they're passive. Like just be honest and blunt with me. That's just the kind of person I am. And you can still be kind and do that, I believe. So the Seattle freeze was something I had brought up when I first started my YouTube channel. The Seattle freeze is a real thing, okay? What is the Seattle freeze? To me, the Seattle freeze is when people are nice and kind, but specifically in like the rainy season, it's just a lot of ghosting. It's a lot of, oh, we're gonna hang out this day, and then a couple hours before, oh, I'm so sorry I can't make it. It's a lot of that energy. Yay, my battery died. We love to see that. Okay, let's continue. I have given it 6.5 years to kind of give it the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh no, like maybe that's just me, maybe that's not actually a thing. No. The Seattle freeze is a very real thing. So buckle up, baby. Moving on, kind of piggybacking off of that is, we're gonna go and move right into the dating scene. The dating scene here is atrocious, is not great. It's not great. Now this could just be perspective. This could be the energy that I'm putting out there, right? But it's just not there. Like I have had a lot of flings and I have been on a lot of dating apps. The men that I am going out with, I don't know, they're just not it. I don't know if it's just like they're a bunch of tech bros, but it's not it. And that's as much as I want to say about it. I made so many videos on the dating scene in Seattle. My whole TikTok is based on the dating scene around Seattle. You guys know how I feel about it. Follow me on TikTok if you want more information on the dating scene in Seattle. If you want me to make a video on it, I can do that. But for me, the dating scene here is just not it. So moving on. My next con of living in Seattle is traffic. Traffic is not great here, and it's only gotten worse. It takes a long time to get into the city, Monday through Friday, I will say, and even getting out of the city. I think it's smarter to live more north because there's more traffic going south, but there's still traffic, and it takes a long time to get places. People aren't really paying attention. It's a city, right? Like any city you move to, there's gonna be traffic, but the traffic here really does suck, and I hate traffic, so yeah, I'm gonna put traffic on this list. So similar to traffic, and please do not come for me when I say this, I am putting this on the list because I have talked to a lot of people and this is something they think is a con. Public transportation. I was gonna put that on my pros because this is the first city I've moved to and I think the public transportation is pretty good. But the more people I talk to, they tell me how terrible the public transportation is. And here's why I put it on the cons. The light rail system is great. You can get from somewhat north, all the way to south to get to the airport. However, you can't really do anything beyond that. Yes, you can take the bus system, which is okay, it's good, it's whatever. But the light rail system, I think a lot of people depend on, and it's also kind of expensive. It's like $5 or $6 for both ways, which isn't a lot one time, but the more you do it, that adds up quite quickly. And it's just really going north to south, south to north. It's not really going east or west really. And that's really tricky because so many people live on the east side and the west side. So I think that makes it really tough. Another thing is the West Seattle Bridge has been closed forever. It just opened like literally a couple weeks ago. That was closed for years and that made it really difficult for people to get to the city. So I just think that the city itself is still really figuring out public transportation. Okay, moving on to some not so fun ones. diversity. Seattle's not a super diverse city. When I first moved here, I kind of thought it was because I'm coming from middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, Minnesota. But the longer I've been here, I'm like, oh, this really isn't a super diverse city. I did also find some stats on this. Let me pull them up. Okay, so this is what Google is pulling up for me right now. And these are just like the top 4. So we have white alone is 65.8%. We have Asian alone is 16.3%. We have Black or African American alone is 7.1%. American Indian and Alaska Native alone is 0.5%, and it just goes lower from there. So it's a lot of white people here. And that's not always what we want. And it would be nice if it was more diverse. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So in general, I don't find that Seattle's a very diverse city. My next con is that there is a lot of drug abuse here and homelessness. I'm lumping those together, which might not be fair, but maybe fair. There's a lot of homelessness here. I think in every neighborhood I've lived in, and I've lived in a lot of different neighborhoods here, there has been a lot of homeless issues. There's a homeless crisis in our state, and it can be really sad to see. I am a very empathetic person, and I like feel people when I walk past them, and that is still something I have not gotten used to here. I feel so much sadness when I see homeless people, and it's kind of like wherever you look, you're gonna see that. I personally do not feel unsafe around homeless people. I know that's not always the case for people. I feel more empathy and sadness for them than scared. I know that was one question I got, so I don't feel unsafe being around them. It's just sad. Okay, we're moving on to the last 2 cons of living in Seattle. My next one is that places close too early. When I lived in Wisconsin, places would close at like 2 a.m. and then there would be like after bar things like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You could party pretty hard there. Here, I feel like everything kind of closes at like midnight, maybe 1, maybe 2 go crazy, but like places close really early here. If you're a night owl, this is a pretty sleepy city. It might not be your favorite because there's just not a lot open. Like I feel like for food, like Domino's is like probably one of the latest places that stays open. I don't know. It just seems like everything closes really, really early here. My last con of living in Seattle is that the wildfires can be pretty brutal. These past couple summers, the fires from Canada, California, and Portland area have really gotten pushed over to us, and it's so sad. Like, I just think of all the critters outside, but B, it can be very difficult to breathe in. The sky can be really smoky, and it's just not fun. When I first moved here, that wasn't a thing. So yeah, wildfires are definitely a real thing over here, and something to keep in mind if you are very sensitive to air pollution. Okay, I do want to just quickly go over some of the cons that my audience also shared. Let me pull them up. I'm sure they're similar, but they might be a little different. Let's see. Okay, Seattle freeze. That was the first one. The restaurant scene, dating, places closed too early. That's what I just said. Lack of diversity, weather, tech guys, no comment. Rent, traffic, it's dirty, how expensive it is to live here, homelessness, drugs, paying for parking. I feel like restaurants and especially fast food are so spread out and hard to get to. Totally agree. Like, fast food is not a thing here. You do have to like go a little further to get fast food, which might not be the worst thing. Hills, it is a very hilly city. So if you don't have a good car that drives up hills, this is gonna be a tough city for you. Lack of sun, bars close too early, not enough authentic ethnic restaurants, no In-N-Out, feeling unsafe walking at night. That is true. It gets dark, so many months without sun, rain is fine, but the gray is brutal. Not a huge fan of all the hills, and downtown is such a struggle to get to. No friends, lonely life. That makes me sad, because that is a real thing. I know a lot of my audience has struggled with making friends here, and it can be a very difficult city to do that. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you've learned something from it. If you have any questions or want me to make any other videos based on Seattle, please leave them down below. If you're not following me on Instagram, please do so. I feel like I share so much more over there, just with short form videos on places I adore in Seattle. I also am pretty active on TikTok with dating and other Seattle things. So yeah, I will leave all that information in the description. I appreciate you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.